Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith. And today, listeners, I'm excited to say I've got a guest, Lorraine LaPointe, here with me today. And we're going to be talking about, are you self-sabotaging your relationship? So let me, without further ado, introduce Lorraine. Welcome, Lorraine.
Oh, thank you so much, Lyn. I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm excited to listen and speak with your audience. So your show is amazing, and I just appreciate being here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those kind words. Well, Lorraine, I'm really excited as well to be talking about, are you self-sabotaging your relationships? Because I think we can all say, hand on heart, hand in the air, that we've been guilty of self-sabotaging a lot of relationships, whether they be romantic ones, family ones, friendship ones, at some point in our lives, aren't we?
I would say yes, because one of the things that that I know is universal is we have an inner critical voice. Most people say it's the inner critic, but it's actually labeled in what I work with as the judge. And the judge, we found, is universal in all cultures. And the judge actually steps forward and judges first self, then others, and then circumstance. So, you know, that sense of what's wrong with me, like, you know, that sense of like, I'm never good enough. That's all that comes from the judge. And then once we've judged ourselves as not being enough, or that there's something wrong with us, we then turn around and reflect that onto others. You know, oh, they're so ridiculous, they're so demanding, they're so this, they're so that, you know, and then that translates into, oh, you know, he or she never does X, Y, or Z. And then that creates that circumstance, that victimization piece, you know, nothing ever works for me.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you know, the universe is conspiring against me, and all of that sense of, you know, circumstance not being right. So
I'm always mindful when people use language that starts with always or never, followed by some negative rhetoric.
That is always there's like, it's often a good indicator that we're actually using the wrong, and not necessarily wrong, but the part of our brain that is wired into the neural pathways wired into these saboteurs. It was actually research done by Stanford University that identified the 10 different saboteurs that lurk in our brains and whisper all of the negativity that we experience, because they live in a different part of the brain from the part of the brain that experiences positive emotions and has a positive perspective. So I often talk about that kind of thing with my clients so that they have a better understanding of what it is they're dealing with and what's affecting their relationships. So maybe today that's something that we can dig into a little bit if you're interested.
I'm very much interested. If it's not putting you on the spot and you've got that information to hand, that'd be great.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'll let the listeners know is that these 10 saboteurs, we're calling them, the inner self-sabotage, comes in 10 flavors. And the 10 flavors, the reason it's so prevalent in our society and in all societies is actually because these saboteurs use our best. What's the best of us? They use what is our strengths and actually turn them against us using what I call saboteur lies. So can I give you an example?
Absolutely. That's what I really love, is to share examples for the benefit of myself and for the audience.
So one of the ones that the audience members might be most familiar with is something called the stickler or the perfectionist. And the stickler's lie to us is that if we listen to it and allow it to run our lives, that it will make everything go smoothly. When everything gets done the way that the stickler or the perfectionist tells us to do it, then we'll feel good. The lie, of course, is that nothing is ever done well enough. Nothing is done perfectly. And so we actually end up never feeling good. And it's really hard in a relationship if one person has a high degree of stickler in their profile. Quite often the other person feels constantly judged as not being good enough, that they can't do things perfectly, and so it sets up this really uncomfortable circumstance where one is striving for perfection and the other is feeling never good enough. So you can see how those two things work against each other.
Yeah, and I think I've not been guilty of that so much, because I wouldn't say I've ever been a perfectionist. But what I can confess to is I think I've been guilty of being that person that feels a bit superior, if that's I don't know if that's the right word really, but probably thinking, that, what, I'm not going to engage in this discussion because I'm going to be the better person and not wanting to lead to an argument, that sort of thing.
That's actually can come from a few different saboteurs. One that irks me greatly is called the hyper-rational. And the hyper-rational is one that likes to convince us that we're smarter than everybody else, that feelings don't matter. We can think through anything, rationalize anything. There's a good explanation for everything. That's the hyper-rational. The other one that contributes to that sense of superiority is the controller. And the controller lie is, of course, if I control everything, everything will work out much better. The truth of the controller is that when the controller is prevalent in a relationship, it shuts the other person down. The other person doesn't feel seen and heard, and so they don't get a chance to really shine. And the hyper-rational just doesn't really entertain emotions at all. So, they tend to rationalize everything away. And guilty as charged. I mean, those are two that tend to be high in my personal profile, that when I notice it's happening in my relationships, I think, I've been sabotaged again, and then I have to step down and step back and realize that others do have lots of great ideas and lots of, their thoughts and feelings are important.
Absolutely. And, it's not laying blame at anybody's door if you're finding that you can resonate with any of these. We're human beings at the end of the day, and we're all guilty of these, aren't we, to some extent?
We all have all 10. So in the work that I do, I help people to identify what the level is of each of the current saboteurs. So it's called a saboteur profile. So it identifies the level of each that we're currently under the influence of. Because we can't work against something that we don't know is there. We can't make decisions about things to be different or to change things unless we actually know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, because we don't know what we don't know until we do.
No, with blind spots. When people say about blind spots, I don't know, it's in my blind spot. Like, we do have blind spots, and they are called the saboteurs. They are our blind spots. And literally, we don't know they're there until we bring them into the light, and then we see what effects they're having in our relationships. And they're never good effects in the relationship, because saboteurs collude with each other. So when in a relationship first starts, we go through that beautiful sense of togetherness at the beginning of a relationship. And of course, all the hormones in our brain are set to see all the positive things and the similarities of our other. And then as those hormones and chemicals start to decrease, we start to see the differences. And the differences is where the saboteurs jump in and make judgments, as I said, judgments against ourselves and others. And then, of course, judge circumstance, and they're very tricky. They are very, very tricky. Like, can I talk a little bit about the pleaser? A lot of our listeners may have experienced the pleaser. The pleaser says that it will make people love you, trust you, and want to be with you. So you should do more for them, because if you do more for them, they'll want to be with you. And so you turn yourself into this human pretzel, trying to match whatever it is that you think that they want according to the pleaser saboteur. And in fact, what you do is you end up being resentful of another. You give and you give and you give out of a sense of depletion.
Yeah, I think it can come across to the other person as quite needy and desperate sometimes, can't it, as well?
Oh, clingy and needy and all of those things that then we say, but at the beginning they loved us so much and now they can't wait to get away from us, or we feel like there's distancing involved. And it's really the pleaser quite often that triggers that distancing in the other person. And if we're not aware of it, what happens is they back up a little bit, or they get a little bit of distance, and then we go running headlong towards them because we feel them pulling away. Happens in a lot of male-female relationships, of course.
Yes.
Men naturally do that, move towards, move away. And when women feel men moving away, we tend to go into pleaser mode and chase them.
Yeah, absolutely. Been there, done that. Learned the lesson. Yeah.
couple of relationships I've done that in as well, and it does not work well. So our saboteurs actually collude with each other, and one triggers another, and then it's like popcorn. One triggers one thing and another triggers something else, and the next thing you know, you're headlong into an argument or a negative feelings towards each other, and you really don't know why.
Okay, so interesting. So tell us more, because we've touched on a few of these judges, and I'm keen to know what they all are.
Okay, so another one that I find challenging to deal with is called the hypervigilant. And the hypervigilant occurs when someone sees danger everywhere. And so the lie of the hypervigilant is that it will protect you and your loved ones against danger. But in essence, what it actually does is it makes the person feel jumpy, anxious, worried all the time. And that's exhausting, to be with someone who is always hypervigilant, seeing danger around every corner, doubting things, self-doubt and doubt of circumstance all the time is exhausting. And so rather than protecting yourself and others from the dangers, they actually create the danger. They create that sense of anxiety in a relationship. So there's another one that is hard to live with.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Quite often the hypervigilant finds a victim. Yes. So somebody who's in a victim mentality. So one sees danger everywhere and the other one responds with the victim piece. Well, nothing ever works out for me. Everything's, everything goes against me. And when you get those two saboteurs that collude together, it's a bit of a disaster in the making in terms of a relationship.
You can definitely see why one attracts the other, I'm assuming across all these 10.
Yes. Well, and we can all see the essence of each one. Like I said, we all have all 10 of them, but some are more prevalent in your life than others. Another one that people are often not aware of is restless. Restless is like that shiny squirrel syndrome, always looking for the next most exciting experience. So where that comes in relationships is quite often if someone is a chronic relationship jumper, they're with someone, but they're looking around at others, always thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. Very hard to be with someone who's always looking for someone else or something, in quotes, better or different. Again, it's an energy drain, and it really damages the relationship because there's no trust, there's no sense of settlement. It's that fear of missing out is basically the hallmark of restlessness.
And I suppose the person who's on the other end of that could feel that, that a sense of a lack of self-worth on the back of that, because they might not feel that they're enough for that person.
Well, there's their judge coming in, right? So if someone that they're with is always looking around for someone else, then that triggers their judge. Oh, you're not good enough. You're not worthy. You're unlovable or not worthy of being loved the way you are. It's a very damaging message to receive. And it's not kind of nice for the person who's in that restlessness either, because they can't ever feel satisfied with anything in their life. If restless is very high on their profile, they literally can't feel satisfied. Similar to the hyperachiever. People in our culture, we're taught that achievement is something that is very good, which it is. But when you have a hyperachiever as your saboteur, you are compelled into the next thing. Nothing is ever celebrated. You achieve, and then it's on to the next thing, achieve onto the next thing. And again, for our partner, if we have a partner in a relationship, that's also exhausting, because it can feel like our goals are like, even when we achieve our goals together, if you're hyper-achieving, the other person feels like it wasn't good enough. Move on. Next thing. Grass is greener. So you can see how a lot of these saboteurs actually work together. They work in tandem.
Yeah, and there's a bit of an overlap with some by the sound of it.
Yeah. And the hyperachiever's promise to you is that if you achieve enough, you will feel worthy, you will feel loved and respected. And that's what they honestly want. A lot of men are hyperachievers, or they have a hyperachiever saboteur. And it's that sense of wanting respect and being seen and heard for who you are. But again, the underlying piece is that you have to earn it. I will be loved if. And as soon as you put the if on it, that's where the saboteurs jump in.
Yeah, and it's all the while looking outside of ourselves rather than being and knowing that we're good enough, and we're happy already without needing those external validations.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up as well, because we want to be in relationship, and we are relational creatures. It's only natural. Human beings are often not recognized as pack animals, but we work in tribes or in groups. That is our natural. If you go back thousands of years, that's how we survived. And so being in a relationship is satisfying in many ways, and we're instinctually driven to it. But also being in relationship is one of the hardest things that we do, because literally our relationships trigger our saboteurs. I mean, people often say to me, oh, I want my soulmate. I'm looking for my soulmate. I want to find my soulmate. And that is lovely and wonderful. And that is exactly what I work with them to do, is to find somebody that they can be deeply connected with and in love with for a lifetime of love. But they also need to recognize that a soulmate or a partner is also the greatest teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And will trigger saboteurs just by their very nature. And so one of the things that I enjoy doing is teaching them how to weaken the saboteur hold, how to dial that down so that they are more in connection with their authentic self, because saboteurs are not your authentic self.
No, and I think, it sounds like it's very much connected to our ego self, our ego mind, that at the end of the day usually is there, from sort of caveman days as a mechanism for protecting us from the saber-toothed tiger that might be around the corner. But actually, in today's modern society, that's obviously not going to be the case.
Yeah, well, we've replaced saber-toothed tigers with things like technology, with things that are prevalent in our environment all the time. Like in caveman days, the saber-toothed tiger only came along once in a while. You didn't have to be hyper vigilant all the time. But in today's fast-paced world, we literally live in a almost like a goldfish bowl of dangers. I mean, we're being bombarded with thoughts and images and expectations. It's a fast-paced world with high expectations, and we're told we're supposed to like it.
Yeah, I know. And it's been especially in the recent years, it's been very fear-driven as well by the media, by governments. And no wonder relationships are suffering on the back of it.
Well, I mean, people who are in fear are easier to control. If you want to control a group of people, you make them fearful. Because when you've triggered their saboteurs, then they're looking for leadership.
Yeah.
They're feeling offside, out of bounds. They're feeling uncomfortable. They're feeling uncertain. That's all the realm of the saboteurs. And so, I mean, yeah, if you're a government, you don't want people feeling, comfortable and and totally empowered, because they're much harder to manipulate, control, lead, whatever term you want to use. It's when you are in your, what we call your sage mind, your wiser self, other people can't control you. Other people don't manipulate you as easily. You follow your own gut reactions and feelings. You are your own person. And a whole society like that would be wonderful. But not if you're the one that wants to control them.
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose the thing is that, a lot of people like ourselves are in that self-mastery, whether it's around relationships or life or health or whatever, environment and industry now. And I think that's probably making governments and maybe even religious organizations that have controlled the masses for generations, and certainly society and the media a bit more jittery.
Absolutely. I mean, when my own background, my father was a minister, so I've done a lot of digging into sort of religions and churches and that kind of thing, and I was always curious about the church, because in my mind it's an ideal business. You have no product, and yet people come and they give you money, and there's all these services that you provide, and that's a good thing. And there was such a good place for the church when people didn't have their own resources, and they didn't have their own education. They didn't understand. But as time's gone on, quite often, in the name of religion, in the name of church, in the name of God, in the name of whatever it is that you decide to join into, it's that sense of belonging. And so we give ourselves away in order to belong to the group and in order to accept what the group tells you. And it doesn't work so well when people are of their own mind. Which brings me to another one of the saboteurs that our listeners might be very well aware of, and that's the avoider. The avoider is sometimes associated with the procrastination, but it's actually a little bit more than that. What the avoider wants to do is avoid conflict of any kind at all costs. So what the avoider does is it wants a pleasant, enjoyable life. It wants, sounds wonderful, doesn't it? I want to be harmonious. I want to have a pleasant, enjoyable life. But what the avoider actually does is it prevents us from doing the challenging, hard things we need to do to make our life enjoyable and harmonious. And so we tend to erode our own sense of self-trust and our own trust of others by avoiding, I don't want to have that difficult conversation, or I don't want to set a boundary and have to enforce it.
Yeah,
and so
they're afraid to rock the boat. I'm guilty of massively being one of these avoiders.
Yeah, and the lie is that it will make life more pleasant if you just avoid things, whereas the truth actually is that people appreciate honesty, and they appreciate hearing the authentic you. And you can only truly work together well in a relationship with someone else if you know that they are being honest with you.
Yeah.
I can think of my a couple of ex-husbands, where if I'd only, like, hindsight's 2020, right? If I'd only had the courage to speak to them about really what it is that I wanted and what I needed in the relationship probably would have lasted.
Yeah.
But I avoided it. I couldn't speak. I was a pleaser. I could not speak and tell them what I needed because I was too busy turning myself into a pretzel, trying to show them, how much I could meet their needs and disregard my own, where really now I understand that it's a gift we give to others to allow them to support us.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you get much more respect by setting those healthy boundaries than avoiding, having that difficult conversation, like you say, because all that does is build up resentment, for one.
Well, yeah, and we wonder why we're not getting what we want, and yet we've actually avoided even asking for it.
Yeah.
We expect our partner to be a mind reader, so that's why when we at the top of the show we were talking about self-sabotage and how it affects relationships. And so you can see how all of these different aspects of saboteurs negatively affect relationships. But there is some good news. Can we talk about the good news?
Yeah, absolutely. Did we manage to cover all 10 of those? I'm not sure. I lost count amongst all that.
Yeah. Well, I can run through them for you if you like. There's the victim, the avoider. There's the hyper-rational, the hyperachiever, the controller, restless, the hyper-vigilant, the pleaser, and the stickler. And of course, we started out talking about the judge. The judge is like the kingpin for sabotage. But there are some really simple, deceptively simple things that you can do to change your neurology, change the part of your brain that is online, so that the saboteurs become weaker. I mean, they will never disappear completely, but they can become weaker, and you can strengthen that inner core, that inner, what we call the sage mind, the wiser you, the part of you that is, connected with your intuition and your gut and your knowing, your sense of knowing. And so one of the ways that we do that, and I'll share it with listeners, is to be present in the moment. The saboteurs like to keep us focused on the past, which is regret and depression and, all of those nasty things. Or they keep us focused on the future, which is anxiety, worry about things that have not happened yet in a negative way. So they keep us either past or future, whereas the sage mind, the wiser mind, is focused on the present. And there are some very simple inner sizes, what I call inner sizes, things that you can do with your senses, your body, and your mind that get you connected with the present. And when you do that, you're able to relate to others in a whole other way. You're less triggered. And you create the relationship, which is the one that we all want, right? I want to feel connected, loved, seen, and heard. I want to be able to ask for what I need. I want to be able to give to my partner what they need when they need it, without being giving from depletion, without it being a huge stress and strain. So that's the program that I work with my clients on, called Mindset Fitness. So I actually call my program No Sweat, because it doesn't take any sweat. Mindset Fitness Fundamentals. So it's No Sweat Mindset Fitness Fundamentals. And we learn to use our inner sizes. We learn to switch that neurology so that we can relate to the other in a beautiful way that doesn't stress them out and doesn't stress us out.
Love it. It really sounds fascinating, and I've really enjoyed talking about this subject today with you, Lorraine. So for the benefit of the listeners, what is your best contact address or information that you can share with them today?
The easiest way for them to connect with me would be to go on the internet and just go LorraineLaPointe.ca, because I'm in Canada. So Lorraine LaPointe, no dots or dashes or any of that stuff, just LorraineLaPointe.ca, and they will get to my website.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up this particular episode, Lorraine, would you be prepared to share some wise words of wisdom to leave our guests with, whether that's one of your inner sizes, as you call them, or
Sure.
something that they can take away from today's show that they could possibly try out and implement for themselves?
Sure. That one of my favorite inner sizes is actually, and you've got it wherever you go, is take your finger and your thumb and you just gently rock them back and forth on each other. And you just gently move them around until you feel the ridges on both your finger and your thumb. And you do that for just a few seconds. And once you have that sensation of the ridges on your finger and your thumb, move to it the second finger and thumb. And then they can move to the third. And finally the fourth. And one of the things that you'll notice is just in that short, 15, 20 seconds, you'll notice that your brain has gone from like, lots of stuff going on, to feeling much calmer, much more centered. And so this is a simple activity you can do anywhere, anytime. Well, actually, some men did point out there was one place that they couldn't do this, but but we won't go there. For most of us, we do this exercise, this inner size, anywhere, anytime, and it literally shifts the neurology of our brain. We feel different because we've shifted the neurology in our brain.
Yeah, the focus is somewhere else, and like you say, it brings you back to the present and the here and now, which is why they call it a gift, the present.
It is. It exactly is. The present is a gift. And the way to presence ourselves, one of the best ways, is to use what we've been given by the universe, our body. And so often many of us walk around as if, well, for me anyway, I was a head that the body just moved my head around. And in the last, decade or so, I've discovered that the body is so much more than just a vehicle to move your head around.
Absolutely, me too. So thank you so much, Lorraine. That's been a really fascinating conversation. I'm sure the listeners will get a lot out of all the things that you've discussed around how people self-sabotage their relationships. So thank you very much for being a really great guest.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being on your show. And Hearts Entwined is an amazing podcast. So thank you so much for having me here, Lyn. I appreciate it.
So on that note, we're saying thanks to Lorraine for her wise words of wisdom. I just want to leave the listeners with true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.